Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Beto, and if you are new in this channel, we create tutorials about React and React Native, mostly web and mobile development, but we are open as well to new tech all the time, and we create a lot of stuff here. So if you like React and React Native, make sure that you subscribe and like this video. And today's video, guys, we're gonna be doing something really interesting. And here I have a demo of what we're gonna be doing. And before I show you what we're gonna be doing, let me bring this tweet that I found like a couple days ago. I was scrolling on Twitter, and I found this amazing bottom tab animated that was created by Hewat. I'm hoping that I'm pronouncing that correctly. So if you want to follow Hewat, I'm hoping that I'm pronouncing that right. He's a software developer, and he always is putting stuff about React and React Native. And I saw this video of this animated bottom tab, so I asked him if it was okay to try to bring that to the channel, and he agreed. So let's try to build this today here. This is what we are gonna be attempting to do. And here I have a demo, of course. You already saw the video, but here we have demo of what we are gonna be doing. So basically, is this really nice bottom tab animated using Reanimated and React Native CLI. And as you can see, this works on Android and iOS, and you can change, of course, the icons and the colors and make it your own. So now that you have seen what we're gonna be doing, if you are interested in doing it, make sure you stick till the end, and let's start. And remember, guys, if you want to download the code for this project, it's going to be in my platform Code with Beto. You can go here and check out all these projects for free that we have available in Code with Beto. And if you want to become a master in React Native, make sure that you check out the course, the React Native course here in the platform as well. Now that being said, let's get this out of the way and let's start building this application. Okay, guys, so let's start by creating the project. I'm going to go to my desktop folder, and here I'm going to create a new React Native application by running the command npx react native init, hit enter, and yeah, this is going to give me an error because I didn't provide a name for this project. So I'm gonna say animated bottom tab, and hit enter. And this is going to start creating our project, so let's wait a little bit. Okay, guys, so our project is created, and I'm here in the folder that was created by React Native. So I'm going to open this on Visual Studio Code by running the shortcut code . And here we have our project open in Visual Studio, and I'm going to start by running this project. So let's just ignore this error for now and run the command npx react native run iOS. And I'm going to specify the simulator. So I'm gonna say simulator iPhone 14 Pro. Let's see if this works. This is going to start creating the application. And while this is being done, I'm going to minimize this a little bit. And we can start just exploring the application. As you can see, we're using TypeScript because it's the default language that comes when you create a React Native application nowadays, right? So let's just remove all this and let's start fresh. I'm going to start by exporting default function app, and this is going to be just a simple component like this for now. And for now, we can just leave an empty tag like this. Hit save, and let's wait until this finish running. And as you can see, guys, the application is working. Of course, we don't have anything because we deleted everything. But now that this is working, we can actually start installing the dependencies that we are gonna be using. So let's clear the terminal, and I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger because we're gonna be installing like 5 dependencies, so you can see. So I'm going to paste the dependencies that we're gonna be using. Let's just mention some of them. Of course, we're gonna need navigation. We're gonna be using native navigation, React Native bottom tabs, D3, shape, and That's basically a library um, to draw lines or drawings. And we're also gonna be using Reanimated, Red Dash, React Native Safe Area Context, React Native Screens, React Native SVG, because we're gonna be actually animating the SVG to move from left to right whenever we choose a tab. We're gonna be using as well vector icons. We need icons, and I'm installing here the types for the tree shape. You're gonna see more about these libraries now that we are gonna be using them in a moment. So let's hit enter and let's wait until this is done. And while we are waiting, I'm gonna do some configuration that we need to do in the Babel config because we are using Reanimated. I'm going to add in the plugins here React Native Reanimated plugin and hit save. And now let's start the application again. When I say run iOS on the simulator, this is just basically a restart the application just to make sure that we have these changes and these dependencies that we just installed. Now I'm forgetting something. I'm going to cancel that and I'm going to access the iOS folder and I'm going to install the pod. So I'm going to say pod install, hit enter, and now we need to install the pods because we just installed a bunch of dependencies. Now let's wait until this is done. Okay, that was actually quick. Let's go out and now we can run the application again so we can have these libraries available for us. I'm going to close this Babel config and we can start actually working on the app file. The first thing that I'm going to import is going to be the safe area provider by React Native Safe Area Context. And you can see that the application is running. Now it's working. Of course, we are not showing anything. That's why we are not seeing anything. And I'm going to close my terminal. We are not going to need it anymore. Now let's import the safe area provider and actually return that in here. So let's say safe area provider like this, and inside we're going to have a status bar from React Native. So I'm gonna say status bar, and let me just delete these types. I don't know why it was imported from the types. And the status bar, we're gonna say a bar style of dark content. Now hit save. Everything it's normal at this point. Now we can start with the navigation. So we're gonna need a navigation container to put our navigation. Let's import this navigation container from React Navigation Native. Now we actually can start creating the tabs, the bottom tabs. So let's go here to the main folder and create a new folder called source. And inside this folder, we can actually create the bottom tabs. So I'm gonna create another folder. And inside this source folder, we can create a file called bottom tabs. So I'm gonna say bottom tabs.tsx. And here we're going to have the screens and the tabs that we want in this application. So let's start by creating the screens. Inside this source folder, I'm gonna create another folder and I'm gonna call it screens. Now for these screens, because I don't want to waste your time, guys, I'm going to just drop these components and I'm going to show it to you. Basically, it's just a simple view that is printing a text. So we have a card, we have a favorites, we have product, and we have profile. Those are the screens that we're going to be using. We have 4. You can have more or less. Now, once we have our screens, we can go back to the bottom tab file that we just created. And let's start by importing create bottom tab navigator. Remember that we installed this dependency. So now we can say const tab equal to create bottom tab navigator, which is basically initializing the tabs that we're going to be using, right? The navigation container. And down here, we can actually export the full function. And this is going to be our component bottom tabs. And it's going to look something like this. We can return a tab. We can access now this tab that we just initialized, and we need to have a navigator. Inside this navigator, we can have a tab group. So I'm going to say tab group. And inside this tab group, we can have the actual screens. So I'm going to say screen, and we can start by adding the screens that we're going to be using. So I'm going to say name, for example, and let's start with products. And the component for this is going to be products, which is our screen. Make sure that you are importing it up here. And we're gonna be doing the same with each screen. So let's import them. And inside this type group, we are going to have these screens. Cool. So now make sure that you have these options as well. The tab label is going to be whatever you want, but the name is going to be the reference to this screen. So make sure that you write it the way it is when you are using these screens to navigate. Now, because we have these screens in a group, we can actually set options for these screens. So I'm going to say that I don't want to show the header. So we can say header shown false. Hit save. And now that we have these bottom tabs, we can go back to the app.tsx and just put these bottom tabs here. I'm going to hit enter so it's imported automatically and hit save. Let's wait. And now we have our bottom tab. That was super easy. As you can see, it's working. And now it comes the difficult part, which is adding the navigation and the animations, right? Okay. Now, before we jump to do that, guys, we're going to be using some utilities and some helper functions. So let's create a folder here. And this folder is going to be called constants. And inside this folder constants, I'm going to have a file called screen.ts. Save. And we are going to have basically just these helper variables that are going to tell us the width of the screen and the height of the screen. We are using dimensions from React Native, and we're getting the window dimensions, right? So we are getting the height and width, and we are exporting it. Now let's hit save. Once we have that, I'm going to create another folder called utils. And inside utils, I'm going to create another file, and this file is going to be called path.ts. Now here I'm going to paste these helper functions. Basically, the functionality of this is going to be to get the path in X center and get the path X centered by index. Okay, so if you want to just pause the video and copy these helper functions for the path, and make sure that you are importing React Native Redash for this. And once you have this, we can actually start creating our custom tab. So I'm going to go to my source folder, and I'm going to create a components folder. And actually, I was forgetting that we're going to need another folder for one hook that we're going to be using. So let's create a folder called hooks. And inside this folder, let's create a use path hook. Now, this may look a little bit scary if you are not familiar with D3 shape and, custom hooks and React Native Redash. But basically, we are just using or creating a hook to abstract all this functionality. And we're going to be using 4 tabs, and we can define here some things like scale and tab bar height. Cool. So we're going to generate tab shape path, the path of the tabs shape. So here we have this line generator, and all this is being used from, and all this that we're doing here is just basically drawing some graphics using the tree shape. So you can copy this, you can pause the video and copy this, or you can go to codeWithBeto.dev and get the code there if you want to analyze this deeply. But I'm just going to copy this. This is basically a helper to continue creating the custom tab. So now that we have this use path, we can actually now this time go to components and create a new file. This component is going to be bottom tabs. Now we can close these files, and we can actually go to the components folder and create a new folder called bottom tabs and hit enter. And inside bottom tab, we are going to create another file called custom bottom tab.tsx. Now, before I start coding here in the custom bottom tab, I'm going to create another file, and this is going to be called animated circle tab.tsx. And let's create another file called tab_item.tsx. Finally, let's create another called icon button.tsx. And basically here we are like destructuring all the components for the custom tab, so we don't have everything in one single file. Now let's go to the custom bottom tab. Now let's go to the animated circle, and inside here we can actually start creating the circle that we're going to be animating. So here I'm going to start by importing style sheet, React, animated, and use animated style. We're going to be changing the position of this circle in the x-axis. So we're going to say circle x. This is going to be the props that this component is going to take. And we are basically saying that this is going to be a shared value, which is a number. Now down here, let's actually create the component. This component is going to be called animated circle. We are taking the circle props and we are destructure them here. Okay. And we are adding this transform style to the, in the translate x, we're adding the value from the circle x that we're going to be passing, right? So we're grabbing the value, and here we are just returning this animated view, which is going to be the circle container, right? Or just the circle. Now I need to create this style, and let me just copy it. I have it here, paste it, and we are basically just adding some styles here. We're setting the position absolute. We are grabbing the top. Notice that this position is going to be at the top of the circle container style size. So we are subtracting that, and you're gonna see how this is going to look. And if you are building this with me, you can play with these values and see what changes, right? So now let's hit save. Now that we have this animated circle, we can use it in our custom tab. Now let's start creating the tab item before we go to the custom tab. Let's grab this tab item, and as well, we're gonna need a bunch of things. So I'm just going to copy them here. We're gonna be using a pressable, style sheet. Okay, so we are going to start by importing everything that you see here. We're gonna be using Reanimated in this screen. I'm going to import feather icons. So I'm gonna say from React Native vector icons, feather. Cool. Now you're gonna see that I'm getting an error here, and that's because I didn't install the types for React Native vector icons. So I can just simply copy this and open my terminal and say yarn add those types. And this is going to take just a couple seconds, and I think this should go away now, and it goes away. Cool. Now let's import the get path x center by index. We're gonna need it here. Remember that this is the utility function that we created earlier. Now we're gonna need as well our hook use path. We're going to need to know the width of the screen, so we can import the screen width. Oops. Screen width from the constants. And finally, we have here this type, which is going to be the type of the props. We're going to have a label, icon, index, an activity, an active index, and an on tab press function. Now let's paste here some constants that we're going to be using as well. The icon size, which is going to be 25. You can change this. The label width, which is going to be the screen width divided in 4 because we have 4 screens. Then we're going to need the animated icon. And this, we're grabbing it from the create animated component feather. Now down here, guys, we can actually start creating this component. So I'm going to paste it, as you know, and I'm going to explain it to you. Let's walk through it. We're basically creating a tab item with this component, right? We know that each item is going to have these properties. Now, we're going to be using the path from the hook that we have here. And we're going to be using as well some values that we're going to be changing depending on the position of each tab item because we want to move the circle, remember? So we are grabbing the animated active index, we're grabbing the icon position, the label position, and we're using the helper functions that we defined before. We're using as well the use shared value that comes from React Native Reanimated. Right. And we are passing the active index. Cool. So now we are basically defining the style of the tab, and the style is going to change depending of it's selected or not, right? So we're translating Y. Remember that when we hit it or when we selected a tab button, we had the text to go up, and we have like the transition moving the circle to the tab that we selected, and then we have like the title of the tab going up and setting in the position that it should be. So we are going to translate Y. We're going to get the icon position X, and we are basically returning all this information by doing these calculations, right? Cool. So now that we have this translate on Y and X, we have as well the label container style. Remember that I told you that the label is going to move on the Y axis. So we have this translate Y variable. Now we are grabbing the animated active index dot value, and we are subtracting 1. If it's equal to index, we are going to move it 36. Otherwise, we're going to move it 100. So it won't show because it's 100 down, right? Cool. Now we have the icon color as well. We are using this shared value. We're basically checking if we have the index of the active tab. We're going to set it to white, otherwise to this color. Cool. Now, here we have a use effect, and this use effect is going to basically do the functionality or basically run everything whenever the active index changes. What we are doing when the active index changes, basically we are selecting a tab and we are just updating the values. We're going to say animated active index dot value is going to be at the current index of this component or at the index of this current tab. Cool. Now we are setting the icon color. If the active index is equal to the index of this tab, we're setting it to white. Otherwise, it's going to be this color. Cool. And with timing, basically, it's just adding a simple delay or a transition from one color to another. Then we have the animated icon props. We are using the hook use animated props, and we're putting the color. Cool. And now we're returning this animated view, which is going to take the tab style, which as we just mentioned, this tab style is going to be changing the position on the Y and X axis. Cool. We have a pressable. Remember that we can press on a tab. Once we press on each tab, we're basically going to call the on tab press, which is not going to do anything, just select the current screen. And this on tab press function is going to be provided to us by the navigation, by the custom bottom navigation that we're going to create. Then we have this animated icon. We are passing the animated props. We're passing the icon, the size, and heat slot. We're passing these basically all these positions, and you can play with these values as well. Now that we have that, we have as well this animated view, which is going to contain the label for each tab, and we're passing as well the style. Now down here we have some extra styling. You can change it as well if you want. But now that we have this tab item, we can go back to our components. Now that we have this, we can go to the icon button and start working on this component. I'm going to start by importing some things that I'm going to paste here. Just React. We're going to need all these from React Native. We're going to need the icon and material community icon from material community icons. Okay, so basically icons, pressables, text, and style from React Native. Now we're going to need to declare a type. So let's just paste this icon library. We're going to have a key, which is string, and a function that is going to contain the component type, which is any. let's declare another variable called icon libraries, which is going to be of type icon library. We just define it here. And we are using feather and material community icons. You can add more libraries if you want. Down here, another type, this is going to be the icon bottom props. So as you may know by now, or as you already can guess, we're gonna need an icon, then an icon family. We're going to have variants, size, icon color, roundness, style, and an onPress function. Of course, you can just skip this if you don't want to have all these types and have to deal with all these variants. You can just set values that you want to have, and they are never going to change. But if you want to have more flexibility on your code base or in your style, you can define all these properties and you just change them, and you won't need to do anything, just see the changes, right? Finally, we can actually create the component, and the component is going to look something like this. We're going to call it icon button, like the file. We are getting icon button props, which if I do hover, it's basically all this. So we are destructuring them here, and we can also have extra properties. Cool. Now we're setting the type here. We are declaring the icon. Each button is going to have an icon, the icon size, the button size, and the bottom style. Now you can see that we are grabbing the variants depending on the variants, depending on the roundness, depending on the height, depending on the style. Cool. Now, basically we are returning a pressable. This icon is going to be just a pressable that is going to do the function on press whenever we press it. We're passing the style, and we are grabbing all the variants and the properties that we are passing. So we are returning this component as we wanted, and we're passing the icon. Cool, with all the properties we need. And down here we have all these styles. You can change them, you can play with them. Basically we have the style for the bottom. We are putting it in a circle with border radius of 40. And then we have the bottom press, container button, text button, outline button, and you can just go through these styles and play with them or just change them. We also have a shadow. We are getting fancy here. Now let's hit save, and this is the last piece that we needed to start actually creating our custom tab. Cool, so let's close this and this and this. So we can now go to the custom bottom tab component and start importing these things that we're gonna be using. Of course, let me fix the paths here so we don't have these errors. We're gonna be using all these from Reanimated. We're gonna be using a style sheet, view, use memo from React, use state, interpolate path from Redash, and the width, the hook use path that we created, get path on X center, tab item, and animated circle. All the pieces that we just created, we're gonna be using them here. Notice as well that we are importing these bottom tab props, which comes with React navigation bottom tabs. Now down here, let's create the animated path by calling animated from Reanimated and create animated component. We're going to say that we want the path, animated path, which is an SVG at the end of the day. And now down here, we can actually put the custom bottom tab. So as you may guess by now, I'm going to paste it. Sorry that I don't write everything because I don't want to bore you guys. And also another thing is that I'm not very familiar with all these libraries and animations. So I'm trying to explain this as good as I can. But yeah, if you have any questions, if you know something that I'm missing, please let me know in the comments so everybody knows. Cool. So now here we are exporting this custom bottom tab. We are grabbing the state, the descriptors, and the navigation from the bottom tabs props. Cool. Now we are using our hooks. We're going to be using the use path. We are destructuring the container path, the curve paths, and the T height. Circle X coordinates using the user shared value. This is going to be a variable that is going to be changing. The progress, use shared value, initialize it to 1, and handle move circle. This is going to be a function that is going to move the circle on the x coordinates dot value, and it's going to set it to the path x center, which is going to basically move the circle to the current tab, right? So we pass the current path, and then we are creating another function, which is a switch case, and we're going to enter whenever we change the route name. So we are going to pass the route name, and we're going to check the name if it's products, car, favorites, profile, and at the default it's going to be home. This is going to be just the names for the icons. Down here we have the animated props. So we are using here the use animated props. We are going to grab the current path using the interpolate path. Then we pass the progress dot value. We are generating an array from these values here, which is going to be the length, and the length is going to be the curve paths dot length. Then we're grabbing as well this from this function, the index plus 1, because remember that the index starts at 0, so we are adding 1. Cool. Now, run on JS, this is a function, this is a really interesting function that we are importing from React Native Reanimated, which means that it's going to run on the JS thread. We are handling the move circle in this thread, and we are passing the current path. So we are going to return this v, container path and current path. So here it's a little complicated to understand if you are a beginner or if you are not familiar as well with paths and SVGs and animations, but if you copy this like this, it's going to work. Basically we are just animating the SVG. Cool. So now handle press tab is going to be another function that is going to take the index of the tab and the tab itself. So navigation, we're going to navigate to the current tab, and we are going to set the progress value with timing to the index that we are passing. Cool. Now we can actually return the component. Here we have the SVG that we are animating, which contains the animated path. We are filling it with black, and this is basically the background of the bottom tab, right? And we are passing the animated props, animated circle, and the circle is going to have the current coordinate. Then we have this view, which is going to contain the tab item. This view is going to iterate through the routes. For each route, it's going to generate a tab item. This tab item, remember that we created this component earlier, and we're passing all the properties that it needs. From this state route, we are getting the index as well. Remember that we need to provide a key when we are iterating over items on React. We are destructuring the options from the descriptors at the position of the current route. And then we're grabbing the label, and the label is going to be grabbed from the tab bar label that we are passing on the options here. Cool. Now, finally, we have the styles. You can check here that is not very complicated. Just we have a shadow, we have the container flex, the tab bar container, and the tab items container. Now, if we hit save, I'm sure I know that I went a little fast, guys, on this, but if you just try to go slow and try to understand by yourself this code, if you don't understand it, I'm sure that you are going to get it super easily. And once you start playing with the values, it's going to be easier. Cool. So now we can go to the tab that we created earlier, and this bottom tab that we have here. Now that we are in this component, bottom tabs, now that we are in this bottom tab component, we can actually specify that we want to use a custom tab. So let's say that inside this tab navigator, we're going to pass the property tab bar, and we're going to get the props like this, and we are get the custom bottom tab that we just created. So these properties that we are getting is basically the properties that Tab Navigator from React Navigation is using by default, and we are getting those properties and passing them to the component that we created here. So I'm going to close this here and pass all the props, destructor them like this. Now, if I hit save, let's hope that this works. Okay, and I'm getting this error, and it seems that this error is because I didn't restart my server when I installed Reanimated. So let's try to do that. So I just stopped my server, and I'm going to run this on iOS again, and let's wait for the build. Okay, so it's compiling, and we have the same error. Okay, guys, so I forgot. I restart everything. I cleared the cache, and I forgot to go to the iOS and then animated bottom tab and the info list. I need to specify the fonts and the icons that we're going to be using. So here, right after this NS location, I'm going to paste this key, which is UI app fonts, and then we are specifying the fonts that we're using. Now let's hit save, and let's actually try to reload. I'm going to need to restart the application, so let's wait a little bit. Okay, guys, and finally, after we added these fonts, we can close the info list, and this is working. So here we have our tab, finally, and we can actually play with the values that we specified earlier. Now, for example, guys, if we go to the animated circle and we can change this background color to be red, for example, and here we have it. Let's go back to the color because it's the one that I like. But yeah, guys, this is basically the functionality that we were talking about. If you remember, this is an animated view that is going to be moving or translating in the x-axis. So basically this component here is this blue circle that it's moving from left to right. Cool. And we are specifying that for the index of the tab. Cool. Now, if we go to the tab item, for example, if you remember here, we have these properties in which we can select the current tab, and we are going to move up the label. So if you pay attention again, when I go to the profile, you see that the names or the labels are coming from the bottom, and we are as well moving the icon up to put it in front of the circle that is moving from left to right, which makes this effect that looks super cool. And the curve that we have from the home, it's coming from the path that we're basically moving here with help of this library called, where is it? Well, we're basically using the path custom hook that we created earlier. Nice. Now, and we can also go now to the actual icon button. We have here all the properties that we are getting from the navigation. This is just a simple component. This is not an animated thing. And we can go to the tab item, sorry, to the custom tab. And here we have all the pieces coming together. Basically, we have the tab item, and all this is having this tab bar container, and this tab bar container has an absolute position, bottom 0. Of course, you can move this up if you want, like that, but of course it's going to bring some things like the icons stay. But if you see, they are translating to the position, to the correct position, because we are grabbing those values dynamically. So let's leave that at 0, and let's do that again, and it's working. Yeah, guys, so this is basically what I wanted to show you. Of course, I know that I pasted a lot of code. I didn't explain everything, but I'm sure that if you created this tutorial step by step and try to copy everything and change the values, you're going to have a better understanding just by doing it yourself. So for example, you can change the circle to be a square, or change the icons, I don't know, change the animation instead from coming down, coming from left or coming from right. And yeah, you can of course change here the animated path, which is the bottom tab. Basically, we can change this, for example, instead of black, let's put red just to see. Let's put blue, for example, and it's going to look like that, light blue. I don't remember the name. Yeah, like blue, it's going to look like this, which looks good actually. And yeah, guys, this is basically all I wanted to show you. Remember that if you want to keep seeing more of this animated stuff and keep watching projects, go and follow Hayworth. He's publishing a lot of this animated reanimated stuff. Like, for example, let's just go to his profile right now, and you can see he's posting these things and he's open sourcing the code. If you are interested, you can go and check it out and follow him for sure. And now that you are here, you can follow me as well at Code with Beto. I mean, at betomoedano. And yeah, so let's close this. And finally, before I go, don't forget to go to the Code with Beto platform. And I'm going to paste as well this code here if you are interested. And don't forget to check the React Native course. And leave me a comment, give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks, bye.